There we go. Nice. Everybody, Ali Grateful Alcoholic. Thank you for that beautiful introduction, Mickey. I want to first of all um, out myself. I need to do that. I do that often. I've learned that from some of my elders. I think the disease of alcoholism is so cunning and baffling, and it lurks in the darkness of my mind and the crevices there. If I don't shine the light on it, it's going to eat me alive. So I am nervous. I've never been so 3 times in my life before speaking. I've been this nervous. First time was the first time I spoke. Second time was the first time I spoke at this meeting at the inception. Now this is the third time. Call it self-centered fear, whatever it is. I'm just grateful that God doesn't make too hard turns for a broken soul like me, and he'll use me exactly where I am, how I am, I'm sure. I was separated from alcohol January the 4th of 2012, and I've been in the middle of circle and triangle since then. With you guys, living a beautiful life, not a perfect life, but a life filled with a deep sense of meaning and purpose. I want to thank the old timers, long timers. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I was in and out for 7 years before I woke up to this program, and it was the long timers and the old timers that were the shining light in the depths of despair that I was in. You know, it was the light of God that you tapped into, that I saw through your kindness, through your humility, through the way you walked these steps. I still remember when I was fresh in and had spent all my money, all my rent money, all my food money. A couple old timers took me grocery shopping. I remember that. I remember the times where they picked me up and took me to meetings time after time after time. I remember that, you know. So thank you so much. You are the backbone of Alcoholics Anonymous, I believe. You're the backbone of this fellowship of the Spirit, I believe, you know. And then welcome to our new friends. If you're new or newly back, you know, you're gonna see. I don't know if you've been to physical meetings or not, some of you, but what one of the first things, anyways, that attracted me was the spirit of the fellowship of the meetings, the camaraderie, the joyousness, the happiness, the banter, just like we have in this meeting, before and after, you know. But my experience is that as amazing and as attractive that is, that's not what kept me here. What's kept me here is the fellowship of the Spirit. Is a fellowship of the Spirit of a loving God that we all get to tap into as a result of these steps and traditions and the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. A God that has literally taken me from the scrap heap of life and put me in the most beautiful life, you know. And speaking of the old timers, one of the things that the old timers, the long timers that I admire, that I have around me, have taught me is that this is a path of progress. It's okay to be broken, and it's okay to make mistakes. So what I'm going to do today, the topic is faith without works is dead, and it comes at the end of step 11. Has comes many times in this book, but at the end of step 11, what I hope to do for you, for me, what I hope that the Spirit does is allow me to, as I share a little bit of my story, unpack the topic, and allow me to disrobe in front of you and show you the wounds. Because I believe it's only through the wounds and the brokenness and the gash in the armor that God gets to shine through. I believe that's what has made me useful to others, and that's what makes you useful to me, you know? So I'm not an expert here. I'm not here to teach anybody anything. I'm just here to share it with you, my experience. I guess that's I guess that beside the self-centered fear, maybe that's one of the things that makes me really nervous before meetings. Like I literally feel sick before speaking, is that I have to become vulnerable. And when I share parts of my story, I really feel it and I become emotional, you know? And it's a little bit embarrassing at times, but it is what it is. So broken is a good word, because that's how I landed here. Absolutely broken every way you can imagine. I was financially bankrupt, spiritually dark, a shell of a man laying on the sidewalk of life, suicidal. Couldn't put 2 days together sober at the end. I couldn't put 2 days together sober at the end. And I can tell you literally in the third dimension what happened to me, like who I met, who 12-stepped me, and which meetings I went to. But honestly, when I look back, the only thing that makes sense to me is a powerful hand of this loving God just caressed me and carried me to you guys. And as a result of these 12 steps, as a result of you guys, the fellowship and the traditions, what happened was that I got to tap into this power. I got to experience this power on a day-by-day basis. I get to build a relationship with this power, and I get to walk in the sunlight of the Spirit of this power, and I get to come over here and tell you about this power. So what I want to tell you tonight, what I'm going to talk about is this loving God, because I'm sober because of a loving God. And this is not a God that I believed in, really, you know, like I prayed when I was in trouble, you know, My conception of God was sort of warped by the way I grew up in a religious country where religious government took over and they used God to kill, rape, torture people. So I brought that conception to you guys. And the beautiful old timers would sit me down and ask me to come up with my own conception, that I don't need another person's conception. However inadequate I feel it is, that's sufficient for me to start a relationship with him, you know? And when I was beaten, my step one experience, when I was beaten and I tried to knock on every single door, every single option I tried to explore that would show that I'm not an alcoholic, that I'm not one of you guys. When it closed, when it shut on me, when I had no other options, I had to wake up to the fact that I've always had a God of alcohol. Alcohol dictated my life, my actions and my feelings, you know? So I had to wake up to that. And then I started to listen to what you were saying. I started to grab onto your faith. See, I started to drink at the age of 16. And right then and there, I can tell you that in hindsight, I heard it said by other speakers, and I read it somewhere. It's so true for me as I live my life forwards and I understand it backwards. When I look back with more clear spiritual glasses, what I see today is that at the age of 16, I woke up spiritually. It was as if like my skin fit. It was as if I could breathe. Everything started to make sense, you know? Like I would drink and my parents would be fighting and I would make plans how I'm going to fix their marriage and he's not going to hit her anymore. She's not going to do what she does. And, you know, everything would make sense to me when I was drinking. I started to drink. I'm not going to give you a big drunk a lot because I want to get to step 11 quickly. I started to drink, to celebrate things in my life that were going well, you know, maybe A in the course or a girl said yes to a date, you know. Then I'm drinking because she dumped me or I lost a tournament or I didn't do so well in the course. After a while, I'm drinking because I wake up and it's Monday morning. I'm drinking because it's raining outside. I'm drinking because you looked at me wrong. I'm an alcoholic. I told you that earlier. I don't need an excuse to drink. I suffer from a terrifying illness. Absolutely boggles my mind and terrifies me that I can't trust my brain. The one organ in my body that's supposed to categorize situations and tell me, don't do that, don't drink that. It's been killing me for the last 10, 15 years. It's faulty. It's got a virus in it. Left to my own devices, it always tells me I got another drink in me. And this disease took me to many suicide attempts, many of them. It may not have happened to you yet. That's an old timer gift. An old timer gave me that long time ago as I was comparing war stories and telling him that I'm not there. I'm not like you guys. I haven't done that yet. He said, yet, Ali, you're eligible too. You keep drinking, you're eligible too. One of these suicide attempts, I had slashed my wrist with razor blades, drank a bottle of vodka and stole my dad's opioids. He was always on and off of opioids. I think at that time I was Tylenol 3s. I ate maybe 40 Tylenol 3s and some sleeping pills. I can't really remember. And I end up in an emergency room at the hospital. They give me some charcoal drink to drink. And the next day or two, everything is foggy, the memory. They put me in the psych ward of the same hospital, 9th or 10th floor of the Scarborough General Hospital. And for some reason, my mother is in that appointment with a psychiatrist with me. And I remember her bawling her eyes out. And I was crying too. And she was begging me not to do this again. She was begging me not to break her heart again. And I promised her with every fiber of my being that I'm not going to do this to you again, Ma. I promise you. And I meant it. And I meant it. I meant it. I had such a conviction that I'm not going to drink again, that if you would have hooked up a polygraph test to me, I would have passed it. I think it was a week or so later. And this brain of mine came up with an excuse to drink. Oh, I know what it is. It was just a phase. You didn't have the right girlfriend. You need love in your life. That's what it is. That's what the problem is. Terrifying to me. Terrifying. I suffer from a spiritual illness, so mind-boggling that for years it would tell me that I'm an alcoholic because of something on the outside. I'm an alcoholic because my dad beat me as a kid. I'm an alcoholic because I came from a war zone. I'm an alcoholic because I lived in a family war zone. You know, I'm an alcoholic because when we moved to Canada, I didn't speak a word of English and I faced racism. I'm an alcoholic because my dad beat me. Always because this disease is so cunning and baffling. It does not want me to look at me. It always wants me to point on the outside while I'm dying in this disease. My skin hurts. Bitter morass of self-pity, dolorousness, bewilderment, quicksand all around me. Like I can't breathe. Spiritually and figuratively, I have no oxygen. I'm confused by life. I'm confused by the way you live your life. You know, like how I perceive others to live it anyways. Like I would see people get into relationships and they stay together and then they get engaged and they get married and they have kids. I was like, how do you do that? Everyone always left me. Or I would bluff that I'm going to leave them and then they would leave me. You know, I was confused by the way I perceive people to like this straight line that some people live, you know, school, job, mortgages and houses. Like, how do you do that? I could never hold down the job. This disease got me fast. It got me early. I mounted to like, you know how some people have some of my elders in this meeting that they were, you know, doing really well, maybe multimillionaires. And as a result of alcoholism, lost everything. And they built it back up again in Alcoholics Anonymous. That wasn't my story. I never had nothing. It got me fast and it got me early. I was just a leech on society, leech on everybody that touched me. I sucked the life out of them through my selfishness. I used them through my selfishness and self-centeredness, you know? And God in his infinite mercy, introduced me to a teacher, Saeed, is in this meeting, and he 12-stepped me, introduced me to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I fell in love with you guys. And for a few months, I was on cloud nine and happy and joyous, and just the camaraderie and the fact that people drank like me and they felt like me and they, you know, they thought like me, and you always welcome me. You never judge me. And I thought I could keep it for nothing. Talk about faith without works is dead, eh? So please forgive me again. I don't have the ability to unpack topics like that, but I'm just gonna share my story, and I hope that you listen for faith without works is dead through my journey, because my journey hasn't been perfect. It's been peppered by resurgence of ego and mistakes and fumbling and stumbling. So what I did was, for the first few months, absolutely nothing in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I guess the disease in my head woke up. And my soul woke up and it started to tell me that I'm nothing. And without a solution, obviously, the only solution that I know, alcohol would fix that. Years in AA, for years, dying, going to a lot of meetings and setting up chairs. I'm really busy at service in Alcoholics Anonymous, but no steps. How silly that is. You know, like I think in pictures sometimes, and analogies really help me unpack things. You know, it's as if like I'm starving, and I go to a restaurant and I look at the menu and I read the menu and I talk to people that are eating this delicious food, and I ask them to describe, how does it taste, this food? Tell me, describe, how do you make it? How does it taste? And then I go home. I did that 90 meetings in 90 days. I did that. Imagine that. How silly that is. I did that in Alcoholics Anonymous, you know? And again, there have been many, many teachers in my path. And I'm going to fast forward to the one I woke up with, to the one I got sober with. She opened the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with me, and we started to go through it line by line. We literally followed the black on the white. That's all we did. If it said to identify with something, I would identify if I could. And if it said to take an action, we would have moved forward until that action was taken. And please don't misunderstand. You know, sometimes, you know, when you talk about transformation and just what it was like and what life is now, you get excited a little bit, right? And there's a conviction in it, in the story. So please don't misunderstand that as that's the only way to do it. No, that's just my experience. I went through it line by line. This is my experience, right? So I guess the best way to describe it is, what happened to me was, as a result of, because I want to get a little bit deeper to my step 11 experience, as a result of all these 12 steps as a way of life, I realized that my entire life, it was as if like I was living in a pitch black room, this big hall that's pitch black. I can't see nothing. And I keep trying to go from one end to the other end to perform some kind of assignment. And I trip over and I fumble and I stumble and I hurt my ankle and I get pissed off and angry and drink. And all of a sudden, as a result of these steps, it's as if like somebody went to the corner of the room and flicked on the light. I was like, whoa. As a result of these 12 steps, a fire was lit inside of me, man. A fire. And I've been on fire since then. Not a perfect life, but fire for a yearning for a deeper relationship with this power, with this inner resource. You know, a fire just to be a better person, a desire to not live on my own will because I destroy things on my own will. I have many examples of that in recovery, you know? And I was on a fast forward, I was 2 years in, sponsoring a lot of men and speaking here and there. And I would come to these rooms and I will lie to you. I would tell you that the relationship with God is the most important relationship of my life. And I didn't know the depths of my life. I didn't know. I just didn't know. This disease is too cunning. I don't see it. You see it in me, but I don't see it. You know, I don't see it. So a teacher that knew me kindly took me aside, didn't embarrass me in front of people, and asked me to consider a couple of things. He said, Ali, you always say that the relationship with God is the most important relationship in your life. Well, what other relationships are important in your life? And what I said was my wife. So he asked me, he said, I want you to consider if you give your wife on a daily basis the same amount of time that you give God, she would divorce you. She would divorce you. Because I was still doing at 2 years in what I was doing when I first came in. Quick little prayer in the morning, please keep me sober. Sometimes serenity prayers, I'm backing out of the driveway at night. Thank you for keeping me sober, you know? And I'm not saying that that's wrong, okay? That's not what I'm saying, because if that's working for you, that's beautiful. But I'm just sharing with you my experience, is that my experience and experience of my elders is that as I enter this broad and roomy path, every humble 24 hours that I step forward, this path gets narrower and narrower and narrower in a couple of ways. But the way that's pertinent to this conversation is I can no longer get away. At that time, I could no longer get away with not doing what the big book suggests: prayer and meditation. Step 11, prayer and meditation. So from that day to this, I have built a prayer life, a meditative life. I wake up early in the morning. I work construction, so I wake up early anyway, so I have to wake up extra early in the morning. And I worship this power. You know, I spend time with God through prayer and meditation. Now, obviously, there's an ebb and flow to this, right? I have fallen asleep to the delusion that this is a path of perfection at times, and there's an image to uphold, and I've been rigid at times. And I got sick from that too. Because I got to wear this world like a loose garment. I got to wear this program like a loose garment. There's got to be room for God to show up in my life. And if I'm too rigid about things, I've learned, I've experienced, it becomes all about me. It becomes all about me, you know? So what I do in the mornings is I literally wake up and when I open my eyes, I start just thanking God immediately about whatever comes to my head in my life, you know? I clean up, I grab coffee, I sit down, I open the big book, and I just literally do what the big book says upon awakening. I ask God to divorce my thinking from self-pity, dishonest, self-seeking motives. I think about my 24 hours that I consider my plans for the day. There's a bunch of prayers that I have that sort of like have come in my life, big book, non-big book, 10, 15 minutes of prayers. And then normally I go to silent meditation, you know. Usually I spend around 40 minutes to an hour and a half with God through prayer, meditation, spiritual readings, all that kind of stuff. And sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, you know. But a practice has grown around me. It's just organically. I had to start with a timer with a meditation. That's what I had to do because silence was violent to me. It was really scary, man. This mind was the predator mind, you know. I had to start like that. And I can't describe to you, as a result of prayer and meditation, the feeling of, and trying to build a relationship with this power, the feeling of joy and serenity and peace that I feel most days. If you're newly back, I wish I could open up my heart and show you. But all I have is these words. I have my limited language and my finite mind to try to describe and talk about infinite power. How do you do that? It almost sounds like just making mouth noises. It doesn't make sense, you know? It doesn't do it justice. And on the flip side of that coin, as a result of prayer and meditation and trying to build a relationship with God, you know what makes this program so powerful? So powerful is that It's a design for living when life gets tough. When a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, maybe a couple of years ago, actually, when my wife and I were separated and we were just like, you know, it was a really tough time we went through. I had moved out, I rented a room, and we're trying to make this, I was trying to practice principles. I was trying to be kind in a marriage that wasn't working, and just continuous work in the program. And I just got to a place where I was so attached to how she's treating me, who she should be like, what my role is as a man is, what her role as a wife is, just attached, ego attached. Isms had me, I couldn't breathe. I ended up in that room that I was renting. And the two thoughts that used to always come visit me. Used to always come visit me when I was drinking, came to visit me again in sobriety. Why don't you kill yourself? Why don't you take a drink? And as a result of prayer and meditation, I paused, because that's what you taught me. I paused and I prayed, because that's where I need God. Like when I'm beyond my own limitations, that's where I need to reach out for God. That's where He shows up like that, I pray. And when you show up, and He told me, it's going to be okay, kid. Why don't we write some inventory so you can wake up again, so you can get unblocked? And I did that. And this person told me that, you know what, I think you haven't done a 6th and 7th in this area. And I said, what are you talking about, Ralph? I know 6 and 7. He said, no, Ali, you haven't surrendered. Oh, I went through the mechanics of 6 and 7 in this area of my life with my wife, but I haven't surrendered. And I woke up as a result of that. I woke up to the point that God woke me up to the point that I had accepted this marriage is done. We're going to get divorced. And I loved her. And I hadn't experienced that in the fighting before. I just wanted the best for her. I wanted to co-parent with her and just be a good dad, And one thing led to another, and the pandemic happened, and we moved back in, and we're back in love. All that stuff worked out. But the point is not that it worked out. The point is that my spiritual experience was that I had accepted that I need to be kind and serve my wife. Faith without works is dead at the end of step 11. Service to others. And then what happened? And then God would send me sponsees and other men that were having relationship troubles over, and just like a flood of them. And I got to share my experience with them. Like I got to disrobe and say, look at this wound, and do you see how God shines through it? See what happened to me? See what happened to me? Because that's what this program does. It's so beautiful. Everything that happens, all the valleys in life, and I'm gonna give you a couple more examples. All the valleys in this life, all the troubles, all the pain, they brought me back to the table with God for a deeper surrender, for a deeper level of surrender, for a deeper experience with God. Why? Faith without works is dead, so I can be of service. Alcoholic like Ali, I'm in trouble if I don't enlarge my spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others. I'm in trouble. So marriage can't be about me. It's got to be about service to others. I met God many times. I meet God many times when I'm awake. Met him when my son was born. I just, like, words are silly, right? Meet God. That's all I have to describe, okay? So about, 12 years ago, 13 years ago was my last suicide attempt. And close to 7 years ago, God gave us a baby boy. And he's the best thing in my life. He's my little Eckhart Tolle, I call him. He's so present to the moment. He lives in the now, where I want to be, Now, when you find him now, He's my best spiritual teacher at times. And we laugh and we play together, and he climbs all over me when I come home tired from work, and he just won't leave me alone. And I train with him and I jog with him. I teach him martial arts, and I tell him that I love him and he's handsome. He's going to be anything he wants in life, And I'm a good dad. I'm a good dad. And I'm a good dad because of you. All the things that I wanted from my own father, who's in active addiction, poor guy. I woke up, I don't blame him anymore. He did the best he could. All the things that I wanted from him that he couldn't have given me because he didn't have it, you guys gave me. God gave me so I can give to my son. Faith without works is dead. if my faith doesn't translate into a transformation in my being so I can be a good dad, then I'm dead in the water. And then what would happen? And then God would send me men that are having, I don't know, difficulties with their kids or their teenage sons, and I get to share my experience. I get to share my, and I get to be of service, and I get to be present in my life. And the last few short years of sobriety, I've had so many financial troubles, a couple of business failures, and my wife, thank God, she's doing well. She has had her own business for a while, right? But I tried to go from job to job to job and couldn't find a job that would pay sufficiently for me to help support a family, And I don't have to tell you, but, sometimes in a marriage, when two alcoholics under the same roof, if we both fall asleep spiritually, finances become a big thing, and there's trouble under the roof sometimes. It was, right? And I feel like, and the stories in my head, alcoholism would tell me, you're not a good enough dad. You're not a man. You can't support anybody. Who are you? Look, you're a loser. So I would pray. I remember one of these times, a story that the last year I've been sharing this a lot. There's plenty of examples, but for some reason this hits me the hardest these days. I was working in a fencing company, digging ditches. They have something called the clam shovel. We built fences around houses, and I was digging ditches, and the ground was hard. It was cold. I think it was cold. No, the ground was hard, but it was hot, and I was depressed, and I was really sad, and I had tears in my eyes. I'm like, God, is this thing ever gonna? I don't want to fight with my wife over the bills anymore. Can you help me out here? And all of a sudden I just pause. And I just remember that I'm being selfish even in my prayers. And I asked them, God, would you please remove the selfishness and self-centeredness from me and show me who would you have me be? What would you have me do, God? And all of a sudden I hear this gentleman who's 65 years old, older than me, right? Who's working alongside of me, hustling that day, man, poor guy. He was a really rich businessman. He lost his deck business to a messy divorce and whatever it was. So he had to be a laborer like me. And he was sitting down. I sat down beside him, and then he opens his mouth and he starts to tear up, and he's asking me for help. He said, Ali, I want to tell you something that I am ashamed to share with anyone else. The last couple of weeks, I've been wanting to kill myself. And I can't stop drinking. I didn't tell him I was in AA. I just told him I don't drink anymore, and I can't stop drinking. Can you help me? Prayer as a result of prayer and meditation and staying awake to the messages and pause in prayer. I open up my mouth and I literally, I can only describe it this way. I hear the words come out of my mouth. And I start to tell them about my experience when I was drinking, what happened. I came to AA and I got sober, and how beautiful my life is now. And I had a spiritual experience right then and there, because the same job, same trouble, same little money. And all of a sudden, I have the most beautiful life. All of a sudden, all the have-tos in my life, like I have to come to work, they became get-tos. I get to be sober, and I get to come to work, and I get to work hard, and I get to look for a job. I get to, if that man is sober today, I didn't sponsor him, but he's sober today. As a result of prayer and meditation and being of service to others, faith without works is dead. That was my works. I'm so conceited. I'm so short-sighted and so self-centered at times that I think I know what God's plan and assignment is for me for the day. That's how I go about my day sometimes. You know what I mean? And look at what happened. That was his assignment. I have no idea. He's the source. He's the employer. Remember, I made a deal way back in the third step. God is the employer. My job is to build a relationship with him and stay close to him and do his work. And he takes care of the details of my life. I can't get bogged down in details. I need to plan for stuff in life, but I can't get attached to the results. I destroy my life and everybody else's life around me like that. Every single time after time after time. That's what God tells me. That's what he tells me. You want to get to know me? You got to get to know my kids. You want to get to know me? You got to get to know my kids. All the valleys in life, man. Depression. Here's a go. Depression. I have suffered from depression ever since I was a kid. I don't know why. Maybe because the trauma that I faced in life, right? I guess my little brain thought it's better to check out and go to sleep so you don't witness whatever it is you're witnessing or experience it. So I remember as a kid, I liked sadness. I invited it. It felt like home to me as an 8-year-old kid. So in the program, outside help, inside help, doctors, medication. You know, I'm off medication now for 3 years, thank God. But if you need it, please stay on it. With the help of my doctor, I came off, right? Spiritual work. I remember I was one of those times, I think when my wife and I were going at it before the separation, you know, and I couldn't find a job for a little while. And then all of a sudden the depression hit me to such, and I'm in the work, eh? I'm in this path. Like I'm not resting on my laurels, but apparently I was in the level of surrender. I was doing the work, just going through the work without a level of surrender, just surface, right? So all of a sudden, I hit a deep depression. And I can't get out of bed for a month. I literally would wake up in the morning and my wife would, poor thing, she didn't know. She's never experienced depression. So she would be angry at times because of fear. So she would think, I don't want to help out. Or you know what I mean? I'm not responsible. She didn't know, poor thing. So she would scream and yell, and I would just go deeper into depression. I would go to the basement. I would just try to fall asleep. And my son was like 5, 6 months old. And I knew I was in trouble because I didn't want to play with him. I didn't want him near me. And then the thoughts came. I started to thought about what it would be like if I'm not here. I pause and I pray. And all of a sudden, I just get in the car. I start to drive myself to the emergency room. I don't know what else to do. That's not my power to do that. And along the way, the whole time, God, thy will be done. Thy will be done. God, please use me here. Please use me to help someone else. Whatever I'm going through, man, you better use it to help someone else because it hurts. Because it hurts. You know? And it has transformed my depression. It comes for a visit once in a while. It just comes for a visit. See, I no longer say I am depressed. Depression comes for a visit. And I got transformed, man. And all of a sudden, God sends me men and women in my path that are suffering from depression and sobriety. I get to share with them. I get to tell them that it's okay, that you get to be broken and you do the best you can from where you are. God doesn't make too hard terms. He meets us exactly where we are all the time. Like every single prayer in the book from 3rd step to 7th step, basically, just my opinion, my take on it, they say the same thing. God, I'm broken. Use my brokenness to do your will. So how am I going to judge him? I shouldn't be depressed. Why not? Why not? He's using me. He's using me. Obviously, this is more easy to see when you're out of it than when you're in it. I'll give you that, right? But thank God for my teachers and thank God for you guys because you remind me of that, you know, in a kind way. In a kind way. And there's another point I want to talk about. Is that this is all step 11 and, you know, service, step 11 and 12 related. There's a line in the big book that I ignored for years. Like I was one of those big book guys, you know, a little bit rigid. But you know, this is an action. You have to take it. It says it in the big book. This is the only way, right? But there's a line that I conveniently ignored. In step 11, I think page 85, somewhere in the middle, in the bottom, I'm paraphrasing, be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they have to offer. Get suggestions from books from them. Well, so in my head, it's religious and spiritual, right? That's how I translate it. So in the last few years, I've followed the spiritual breadcrumbs that God has dropped for me. I'm not a Christian. I've gone to Bible studies. I've made friends with a reverend. I've gone to church. I'm not a practicing Muslim. I've gone to mosques. I've gone to synagogues, books and meditations, Eckhart Tolle and Thomas Merton and Emmett Fox and all kinds of beautiful paths. Buddhist meetings, you know. This is step 11 just opens up a universe of God to me because I'm building a relationship with infinite power. So how can I put it in a box that's only in 12 steps? The 12 steps themselves tell me, go explore. But here's a caveat to that. Here's my experience. Past, I've been taught, thank God, to do them along with AA, not instead of AA, you know? Because if religion and other spiritual paths are all we needed, nuns and priests wouldn't be in Alcoholics Anonymous, but they are, right? But they are. See, I believe what's in AA, the spiritual, beautiful path, the spiritual food that we eat in Alcoholics Anonymous is not unique to us. The Spirit has been giving us these messages for thousands of years. Just the Spirit decided to take two broken souls, Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith, and create a program that we could digest. And I believe there's a reason for the reason that I can digest it as an alcoholic is twofold. None of those beautiful paths have the first half of the first step. I admitted that I was powerless over alcohol and what that means to be an alcoholic. None of them do. They all have the unmanageability of life. It's a human condition. That ego, that self, it's a human condition. Even though maybe as an alcoholic, I may be extreme, but that's a human condition, right? And the other point that none of those paths have is the first half of the 12th step. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, I tried, not perfectly, not at 10 sponsees, 20s, no, I just tried to pass this message on to other alcoholics, right? They don't have that. Those are the two things that connect us together in the fellowship of the Spirit, all of us. Fellowship of the Spirit, right? And the few short minutes, 3 minutes or a couple of minutes that I have left, I just want to, I hope you listened and heard and I described, for you, faith without works is dead, how it has played in my life and my journey, So I want to tell you, I think the most important, and in this meeting, a lot of Step 11 speaker series and meetings, we talk about the gifts, and we usually talk about the how, like how I pray, meditate, how. I believe just as important or even more important is the why. Why? I've touched on it a lot throughout this last few short minutes. See, at the beginning, I wanted to build a relationship with God, have a relationship with this power through prayer and meditation because I don't want to drink anymore. That was my why, and that was good enough because God doesn't make too hard terms. And after a while, I'm in recovery, and God gives me these gifts, man. Child, wife, house, car, whatever, right? These gifts, job that I can support my family now. By the way, I got a job I can support my family now, right? And I was building prayer and meditating because I didn't want to lose those gifts, a bit of the self-centered thing, right? Selfish thing. And after a while, I'm praying, meditating because I love that God feeling. I love that feeling of joy and serenity and peace. I love it, I chase it. And after a while, I woke up to the real I for me. They say faith without works is dead many times in this book, many times. It's as if like the Spirit is just dropping little crumbs and I pick it up. After the third step, there's just the beginning. Faith without works is dead. 4 and 5. After the seventh step, this not all. Keep going. 8, 9, right? After every step almost. But after the 11th step, faith without works is dead. I believe the why is the 12th step. That's why. That's what gives my life meaning and purpose today. And I've been rigid and try to put that in a box as well. That the 12th step only means that I'm sitting across from a sponsee, and 12 steps is all encompassing for me. There's another half to it. Practice these principles in all my affairs. That I get to walk godly. I get to represent this power in all areas of my life to the best of my ability. And I make a lot of mistakes. And that's okay. Because those very mistakes get me to seek God on a deeper level. That's the why. Because if my life is about me, I'm dead in the water. My life has to be of service to you. This path is not about perfection, as I used to be really asleep to, and sometimes I still fall asleep to. It's a path towards a deeper level of humility, kindness, and love to others, just like the love you showed me when I was unlovable. And I've been unlovable in the path, by the way, sober at times. Thank you. Thank you. And on that note, if you're newly back, if you're hurting today, I pray that, first of all, I have a deep sense of love for you. We all do here. We really do. I pray that you reach a deeper level of surrender, that you open up your mind and set aside everything that you think you know and get a sponsor and join a home group and dive in these 12 steps and experience the God that I'm talking about. Because God is not experienced in my thinking of him, in my conception of. I need a conception as a starting point, but I can't understand him. I experience God through the actions. I experience God. I know God, God personal to me, because I've gathered evidence in my life that God exists when times were tough. I've gathered evidence in my life when God exists, when I see you go through tough stuff and you share your wounds with me. You know, like my friend Teresa does all the time. You know, I love you. Thank you for allowing me to share. And that was that.